All right, so let's set up the partner chain dependency services. As mentioned earlier in this video series, the Midnight needs a persistent connection to follow the Cardano chain because the Cardano chain stores Midnight's partner chain scripts, which define the block producer committee rotation and governance mechanisms. Cardano DB Sync indexes data from the Cardano blockchain into a PostgreSQL database. It automatically follows the chain, extracts key information like transactions, ledger state, and organizes it into a structured SQL database. So Cardano DB Sync acts as the chain follower, and the Midnight node is able to access the SQL database via a PostgreSQL server port. Now, Cardano DB Sync does rely on a Cardano node data to index the chain. So you can use an existing Cardano node if that's applicable to you, or run a standalone instance of Cardano DB Sync with Cardano node. In this video series, I'm going to run a standalone instance. I'm also going to run Ogmios in the standalone instance because Ogmios is a lightweight JSON RPC interface that will be needed when we register a block producer candidate to the committee. The Midnight team does provide a public Ogmios instance, which you are definitely happy to use to register, but I always recommend you use an instance that you control. And this sounds like a lot of services, but don't worry. To streamline the deployment of these services, I'm going to leverage the public Midnight Docker Compose project from GitHub. It contains pre-configured files designed to orchestrate all these services, making the setup process just a little bit more efficient. So if you look here on the screen, I'm showing the Midnight Node Docker repo. And what I'm going to do is there's actually two Compose files here that we're going to be using in this tutorial. There's the Compose YAML file, and this contains to Docker Compose up the Midnight node. We're not going to do that one just yet. What we're going to be using is this Compose Partner Chains YAML file. And this basically contains the Cardano node, Postgres, Cardano DB Sync, and the Ogmios instance. And what we also have here is all these pre-configured environment files. These are actually going to be automatically picked up by DirectEnv. So as we did earlier in the tutorial, make sure you have DirectEnv installed. Otherwise, you will have to set up all these environment variables manually. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do copy this, and I'm going to do git clone and simply clone it. And I've already cloned it. And then I'm going to change directory into the Midnight Node Docker project. And you can see here, DirectEnv already loaded those environment variables from those environment files. If I do ls list all. It basically already loaded those environment variables from those environment files, which is good. Now, if that doesn't happen to you, what you can do is you might get an error that says DirectEnv wants you to allow to read that environment. So what you can do is DirectEnv allow it. And just in case you're not sure, you can always do DirectEnv reload. And that will reload the environment RC file and populate those environment variables. For example, like if you can do echo, let's see which one. Let's do Postgres host, or let's do Postgres password. How about that? So I did echo Postgres password, and these passwords are automatically generated. If you look at the environment file, you'll see how it is. But if you want to change the password, what you can do is change the contents of this Postgres password file. So if I go to cat Postgres password, you can change this password to whatever password you desire. And I always recommend choose a password, unique password to yourself, or you can use a random one if you want to, but always choose your own unique password. But for testing purposes, I'm just going to use the default random password that was created. And the next thing I'm going to do is hit clear. The next thing I'm going to do is Docker Compose up the partner chain dependency services. And I'm going to do that with Docker Compose up. Oh, no, actually I'm going to do Docker Compose, the F flag for file, and I'm going to do Compose Partner Chains YAML file. And now I'm going to do up, and I'm going to do the flag D for detached mode. This just tells Docker to not run all the services like interactive in the shell. So I'm going to run that, and you should see all the services start. And you can verify Those exist by doing Docker container list, and you should see all those services are running. And you can also see the associated ports to those services. Now you can verify your services. There's some simple queries that we have here in the Midnight docs. And actually in this particular step of the Midnight block producer documentation, have this manage and monitor services section. And we have some simple queries here. For example, you can curl the health status of Ogmios. So I'm going to just do that, and you'll see this returns the status of Ogmios, and it shows a network synchronization. And if I curl that again, I should see some progress, and which I do. Okay. Another way you can verify the Ogmios instance is you can actually visit the Ogmios dashboard. So this localhost 1337, if I put that in here, it should show the Ogmios dashboard. And it does show it's connected and the synchronization is progressing. Okay, now let's verify that Cardano DB Sync is properly indexing the chain. There's a few ways you can do that. You can use the PostgreSQL client directly, or you can do it via Docker. I'm just going to do it through Docker. I'm just going to copy this, and this command's already invoked with all the default settings from the compose file. So if you make changes to like the host name and all that stuff, just make sure you're invoking the command with any custom values that you use. But anyways, I'm going to copy this, and what this is going to do is enter the SQL shell and the SQL shell of that database, and let's query the percentage that we're synced. And we have this command here, which you're welcome to copy and paste. And you can see here, I'm at 97%. Now, I already had this running, so that's why I'm at 97%. But your Cardano node and Cardano DB Sync instance could take a couple hours to actually sync to the tip of the chain. So just be aware of that.